Hi, and welcome to a special art history episode of InstaVision. Well, it's more than just art history. It's all about art and inspiration and all sorts of stuff. My guest today is Camille Paglia. She is University Professor of Arts and Media Studies at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. She's a well-known commentator on many topics, but her new book is Glittering Images, A Journey Through Art from Egypt to Star Wars. Well, you know, artists actually, I think, used to be respected in America, and now not so much. Many Americans, in fact, as you know, regard contemporary art as something of a scam. Why is that?
Well, the fine arts have always had trouble, Glenn, getting established here in the U.S. We're a practical nation, and often in the 19th century, art was associated with the women, and the men were men of action. So then it was really in the 20th century that art from America moved into the forefront with Jackson Pollock and et cetera. But in my analysis, as a career art teacher, mainstream Americans still have not accepted abstraction. They still kind of regard it as a fraud or a hoax. So the Hollywood movies and TV programs of the 1950s were full of these portraits of the abstract artist as a weirdo, a psychotic who was the criminal discovered who had committed a murder by the end of the episode. I'm a great listener to talk radio. I felt that there's a need of outreach to the two mainstream conservatives who many of whom are Protestant. That's a religious tradition that doesn't have a heavy, doesn't have any kind of imagery that was part of the Protestant Reformation to reject the pagan idolatry of these statues and stained glass windows of the medieval period.
Iconography is not a big deal in Protestantism generally.
No, but Catholicism, particularly from Southern Europe, and as was transported to Mexico and to South America, is image heavy. So my visual sensibility was honed by looking at the stained glass windows and statues of saints in my baptismal church in upstate New York. I'm trying to reach, in particular, homeschooling moms, to give them a kind of handbook to introduce art to their children.
Now, you know, one thing you hear a lot from conservatives on talk radio is that on the one hand, there's a lot of frustration. Well, we don't have any power in the culture. We don't control the culture. The culture is controlled by a bunch of liberals. Right. And I guess that sort of becomes self-reinforcing. If you also say, and we don't do art because that's not for us, that's for con men or something.
Well, I'm extremely upset by the endless series of sacrilegious art from the 1980s and 1990s that I think poisoned the atmosphere about art in the United States.
Piss Christ and things like that.
Piss Christ by Andre Serrano, a plastic crucifix submerged in a beaker of the artist's urine, was a third or fourth rate level work. It does not deserve its fame. In the art world's knee-jerk need to defend these stupid, gimmicky stunt artworks, right, has made a situation very difficult for the arts to flourish and be supported in the United States. Now, I want there to be an increase in arts funding, not the threat of extinction of the National Endowment for the Arts. But I agree. Okay, I'm a registered Democrat. Again, coming from the liberal context of art schools, I agree with conservatives that there is a monolithic orthodoxy that dictates in the art world that I feel is not in the best interest of art, okay? Because this is why art is so sterile right now. There's nothing happening. Art is flatlining precisely because it's so insular. It's an echo chamber where there's like too much inflation of mediocrity. And what we need is two things. I'm aiming this book at conservatives to make them reconsider the history of art, to give them an entree in the history of art in a very concise way. But I'm also aiming the book at liberals who are now trapped in their own form of cliched thinking, which is this secular humanism, this constant sneering at religion. I'm an atheist, all right, but I respect all world religions, and what I'm arguing in this book is that liberals have to wake up. Art is spiritual. Art it uses materials, physical materials, but it's a spiritual quest. And the artistic mission has a spiritual goal, but nothing in the ideology and the language of current academe, from Berkeley to Harvard, permits anyone to say that. It's regarded as reactionary, simplistic, naive, and instead we have these cynical forms, post-structuralism and postmodernism, sneer, 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 sneer. Right? This is why students are emerging from our best schools mal-educated.
Well, it's interesting. There's a term that James Toronto has been trying to popularize over at the Wall Street Journal. It's oikophobia, which is sort of the fear and hatred of one's own kind, in essence. And I think a lot of the academic establishment in general, but perhaps particularly the arts establishment, has this, that the only way to be an authentic artist is, in fact, to produce things that the majority of Americans will hate.
Yes. Okay. So what I'm saying in this book, and in the polemical introduction, for most of the book I'm invisible. It's only the artworks come forward. I'm saying that that era of shock, okay, of avant-garde art is over. It was killed by my hero, Andy Warhol, from the moment he absorbed the Campbell's soup cans, from the world of capitalist commodification, as they would call it in academia. And probably the last avant-garde, truly avant-garde works that I can see would be the photographs of Robert Mapplethorpe from the late 1970s of the homosexual sadomasochistic underground in New York. That was it. Since then, it's just a bunch of mediocrities rehearsing these great gestures of rebellion that once cost you. Okay,
right.
that the nature of avant-garde art is to cost you personally. Okay, in the 19th century, you risked poverty and defamation and exclusion, ostracism. Today, okay, you do a work of shock art, and what happens? You're written up in the New York Times. You get a grant from the NEA. You get a job at Berkeley. Okay, it's an outrage. It's a fraud. It has to stop.
Well, at a very different level of the art world, one of the first things that gets cut when you have budget cuts is art education.
Yes.
And is some of that actually blowback from the kind of things that's going on at the higher level of the art world?
This is what I'm saying. Okay, I'm saying that in the introduction to this book, I'm saying American school children losing their art programs. American school children are paying the price for the art world's delusional sense of entitlement. Exactly. Okay, that's exactly what's happening. Now, here's the problem. The way art is taught in primary schools is like do it yourself. They give you to express your inner creativity. It's like that's from John Dewey. This is not. We need to get art history, actual introduction to great artists and great art into the primary schools at every level.
All like this. It's propagating traditional Western culture when you're teaching people art history.
Yes, but art history has always been excluded, okay, from the curriculum in the United States. It's not part of our culture, whereas in Europe, Europe is very heavy with it, with almost too much so with its artistic bequest. So there you do have art history at the primary level. Not here. It never has been here. Okay? So this book is my first step to try to create this revolution, to get true objective study of art history into schools. Now, but there's two problems. Okay, number one, a lot of religious art, okay, is some of our most important art. Okay, and therefore you're going to get resistance from the left, okay, about teaching religion, Christian doctrine in the classroom. And on the other hand, a lot of the greatest art since Greek antiquity consists of nudes, okay, nude males and nude females. So there's going to be resistance on some level from conservatives. I still think that it's possible to strike a middle ground.
Wasn't it Penn where they had the female professor who objected to teaching in a classroom that had the Goya painting?
Exactly right. Okay. Yes, Pennsylvania State University. It was I believe in the late 1980s, early 90s.
Penn State should have had other sexual worries.
And there was it was an English class that happened to be scheduled in the art building where for 40 years had hung Goya's Naked Maha. And you have this Philistine, okay, full of her feminist ideology, who couldn't deal, okay, with a naked Maha. She complained that the people in the class were looking at it rather than her. Now I wonder why.
Well, so the book is 29 essays on works of art as various as the Charioteer at Delphi and George Lucas's Revenge of the Sith. How did you choose?
Well, my original plan was never to include George Lucas. It happened that I was looking for strong contemporary art to end the book with, and I couldn't find any examples of it. All I saw was good work that reminded me of 10 other prior examples of art from the last 200 years, which convinced me of just what a wasteland the current art scene is. I'm talking internationally. So I was watching TV and the Star Wars films again and again and again being shown on a cable TV channel, and I became obsessed with this great finale of Revenge of the Sith from 2005, film that George Lucas directed, and it's the last film made in the Star Wars series, but it narratively belongs in the middle. And I thought, my goodness, this is so powerful. This is like grand opera. It's like landscape painting from Romanticism. It's like apocalyptic destruction of industrial culture and politics. Everything going with this unbelievable dance theater of the longest duel ever filmed in movies. It's passionate engagement, on a lava river between these two men. Right? So I became overwhelmed. And so I'm saying, okay, and I will defend this, to the death, is that this long finale of Revenge of the Sith is the most powerful and the most significant work of art in any genre, including literature, in the last 30 years.
I'm sure George Lucas will be happy to hear that.
Well, yeah. Well, you see, I don't think.
Did you get any blowback on that?
Yes, people already complaining, Jar Jar Binks, this, that, and the other. It's so all these trivial. Please, okay, you can't just like pull out. You could go to like the greatest novels and the greatest plays, of the past and find things you don't like in them. Good Lord, the deficiencies in George Lucas's oeuvre. Okay, you maybe like what 5%. Even if you said 10%, you're still dealing with this man's a genius, and he's not getting the kinds of attention, simply because of his commercial success, which is overwhelming. Also, he's very reclusive. He doesn't, give interviews, and also he's associated with having turned Hollywood, like Steven Spielberg, toward children's entertainment, toward the blockbuster. He's thought to be simply a purveyor of kids' toys, and an unbelievable agreement with Lego. Okay, when they dominate the world with these Lego sets, priced in astronomical fees and so on. So I think that people have to just get past all that and really look at the fact that George Lucas is a world figure who has penetrated the imagination of young people, not really 3 generations now, all over the world.
Well, when archaeologists dig up the ruins of our society in 10,000 years, there will be a lot of George Lucas action figures among the rubble, won't there?
Yes, that's absolutely.
All right, final question. You've said elsewhere that you are voting for Green Party candidate Jill Stein, who I actually interviewed, rather than Barack Obama. How come?
Well, I supported Barack Obama in 2008. I contributed to his campaign. I was very excited about him. I thought he was a moderate. I thought that his election would promote racial healing in the country. It would be a tremendous transformation of attitudes. And instead, there's been one thing after another. Not least, I consider him one of the most now racially divisive and polarizing figures ever. Okay, I think it's going to take years to undo the damage he's done to relations between the races. But beyond that, I'm just sick and tired of endless war. Okay, I was in favor of bombing the hell out of the Afghanistan mountains after 9/11, but I would never have agreed to this land war in Afghanistan, this endless land war, as well as things like the Libyan incursion, okay, that Obama appears to have been pushed into by these women like Hillary Clinton and Samantha Power. Right? The chaos of the foreign policy, the bowing to foreign leaders, also the Obamacare. Of course, we need health care reform in this country. What a mess! Everyone agrees about that. But the Obamacare is, to me, a Stalinist intrusion, okay, into American culture. The creation of this culture of surveillance from these bureaucracies, which was also carried over into Obama's endorsement of drones on the military level, as well as for police, control of the population. I mean, I don't understand how any fellow veteran of the 1960s who's a Democrat could not see the dangers here. Okay, that Obama is a statist. It's exactly what Bob Dylan was warning about in Subterranean Homesick Blues. Okay, all right, we don't want government agencies being empowered to intrude into people's lives like this. I mean, the controlling force in Obamacare is the IRS. Okay, and this flies in the face of what the free speech movement was about at Berkeley, or about any of the values I feel of my generation. So I feel that the Democratic Party needs to be shattered and remade, and to recover its true progressive roots. I don't regard this, I don't see progressives. Okay, all I see is white upper middle class liberals who speak in this unctuous way about the needs of the poor. They have no connection whatever with the working class. Okay, it's the professional class gone amok, and that's why they don't notice what a bureaucratic nightmare Obamacare is.
Yeah, that's Joel Kutkin talks about the gentry liberals taking over, and I think that's exactly right.
Yes.
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us here.
Thank you for the invitation, Glenn.
Thank you. And the book is Glittering Images, A Journey Through Art from Egypt to Star Wars, and it's Camille Paglia, who's a university professor of arts and media studies at the University of Arts in Philadelphia. Thanks so much to you for tuning in. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, have fun on the internet. Thanks.